Okay, so now I'm going to tell you how I got to the point of laying these out. And so once you've established the thickness that you want each layer to be, and in my case it's going to be 3/4 because I'm gonna start with rough sawn stock and plane it down myself. You're going to measure up, and I go back to the center line and do it. So starting with my first layer, which is going to be about 3/8, I'll make a line, and then come up 3/4, 3/4, 3/4, and then finally another 3/8 for my top one. Then using my combination square, I will come in and mark a line across. Okay, go back, drop it down, in this case 3/4 of an inch, come back and mark a line, and I do that to all the layers. Then going back to the combination square again, I start establishing the width that each segment needs to be. Now, this bowl is going to wind up being a 12-sided piece. The more sides that you have, in this case, this one's 8, but the more sides that you have, the less, say, excess on either side that you need to allow, because the shape is going to be more round when you start with. If you're starting with an 8-sided one such as this, you need much more thickness because there's not going to be as much overlap when you take your next one and turn it that 1/4 of a turn and put it on here. So that's something to think about. Now also, depending on how confident you are of lining up each subsequent layer, that will throw the whole thing off. So for your first one, you may want to allow a little more say error room, but I'll show you the way that I typically do it. So for a 12-sided bowl like this one, I usually come out and measure say 1/8 to 3/16 past the furthest point within each line. So starting with our top line, this right here is our outside bowl. So I come over and I make a line about, like say, about 1/8 to 3/16. Coming down to the bottom line, I stay away from the widest point here, make a line. Okay, that section's done. Dropping down again about 3/16 or so over, and about the same on this side. And what you're ending up with is a bunch of rectangles. Okay, this represents the width of the stock that you need to start with, this right here, okay, in order to get this desired shape out of it. Okay, so with all our rectangles drawn, I come over to the other half of the page, which of course was blank when I started, and I draw this little chart. And this is where I'm going to write down all my numbers. And one thing I want to mention, the reason I start with a center line and only draw half the bowl is for a number of reasons. One, it's much easier, and if you were to try and come out here and draw, say, the other side of this bowl, that is very difficult to get this side to match that side. And if you were to pull your numbers from, say, from this width to what would have been on this side, if this side doesn't match exactly, that's going to throw your numbers off. So it's a very inaccurate way of doing it. All you have to do, of course, is multiply by 2, and you get your numbers. And let me show you how that's done. So the first thing we're going to do, and using our, of course you can use whatever ruler you want, but I'm going to use my combination square here. What you want to do is go from your center line, okay, and you want to measure out. Now you do not measure to the curve of the bowl, you measure to the outside block. Okay, in this case it's about 5 1/16. So of course times 2, that's going to give us a 10 1/8 inch diameter. So what I've done here is divided this up with the same amount of layers, and I just number each layer 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So starting with the beginning, D is diameter, of course. The length here we'll discuss in just a second, width, thickness, and total length. And the way that breaks down is just like this. So we start with our 10 1/8 inch diameter, okay? And then for our width, and I usually go ahead and do width and I save length for the ending. But for our width, what you want to do is measure the width of our little rectangle here. And in this this case, that's going to be 3/4 of an inch. And again, that relates to the width of the stock that you need to cut. T is thickness, of course, and that relates to that, which is, again, that's going to be about 3/8 when it's finished. And I wrote down 1/2 inch, and that's just for me because I'm going to start with 1/2 inch, and by the time I get it all cleaned up, I'll arrive at my 3/8 final width. So with those numbers, this is very simple. This is how you do it. Okay, you're going to start with your 10 1/8, which is 0.125. Okay, now going back to some math class, we know that to figure out a diameter, we simply multiply the, to figure out a circumference, you multiply your diameter, which is 10 1/8, times pi, which is 3.14, and of course that number goes on infinitely, but that's usually close enough. And that gives us a number of 31.79. Now this here will give you your total length right there. And it's always good to add a few inches to that because you want to have something to hold on to while you're cutting your stock. So I went ahead and rounded that up to 34, as you can see here. Now, from that point, again, this is going to be a 12-sided bowl, so we very simply divide by 12. And that's going to equal 2.64. And of course that number is going to go on, but trust me, you get to a second decimal point, that is plenty accurate enough for what we're going to do. So that's how you figure out each ring. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to fill in the rest of this right here, and then we're going to start cutting.